last night the draft was awesome. There was so much movement. There were so many teams picking multiple times, and there were a lot of good moves. I liked a lot of the teams' moves, and some of the players being drafted are going to make a lot of teams good in the future. And in this video, we're going to be not only grading players, but we're going to be ranking them as well. So we're going to be ranking them from 32nd all the way to first, and we're going to be ranking them from A plus to a C minus, which is my lowest grade in this draft. So let's get right into it. With my worst pick, I have the New England Patriots at 32 at a C minus. Now, Cole Strange was a projected third round pick, and I did not see him going in the first round. I saw him being a late second round pick, but he will play guard on a good offensive line. They lost David Andrews, or not David Andrews, they lost Shaq Mason, in a trade. And there's nothing more to say other than they way overdrafted for a guy that was going to be in the third round. Do I think he's going to be a bad player eventually? No, I do not. But the facts are that they overdrafted for him. At my 31st pick, I have the Cowboys' Tyler Smith. Now, I was not very high on Tyler Smith going into this draft process. I think I left him out of my top 50. Now, Tyler Smith is known as more of a mauler kind of run defender, decent in pass pro. But my biggest issue with him is he commits way too many penalties. And I really didn't think he was going to go in the first round. And I think that their biggest need, which is edge rusher, as they lost Randy Gregory, slipped to them. They had George Karlaftis available, and they had Jermaine Johnson available at 24. I think this was a big miss for the Cowboys. I have nothing else really to say other than I don't love this pick, and I'm going to give this a C plus grade. My next pick is going to be Quay Walker. Now, I was not the biggest fan of Quay Walker, or I like Quay Walker. Okay, I'm not the biggest fan. I liked Nakobe Dean a lot better. I liked Devin Lloyd a lot better, and both of those players were picked below. Nakobe Dean hasn't even gotten picked yet. He fell to the second round. But anyways, Quay Walker I thought was just a more prototypical linebacker. As you can see the size, he's 6'4", 240. But at the same time, on the field, he was not as impactful as Nakobe Dean on the Georgia defense. I should know because I watched every single one of their games. Now, I still think he probably was going to go in the first round, but at 22 in front of his better teammate and Devin Lloyd, who's the same size and a better linebacker, I just don't like the pick. I'm going to give it a B minus. Now, with the Vikings, their pick was not bad. I like Lewis Cine a lot. But the problem with this is they got fleeced. They got fleeced by the Detroit Lions. I mean, oh my God. The Lions went from 32 to 12, and they picked Jameson Williams, who will be later in the video, and they didn't really have to lose anything. They did a second round swap, and they basically gave up a third. And they didn't even have to move down that far. But with Lewis Cine, I like Lewis Cine a lot. The best safety there, and very impactful on the defense. I think he's going to be good for their system, single high safety. But I just can't get over the fact that they got fleeced so bad, and that's kind of tarnishing their rankings a little bit. So it'll have to be the 29th pick. And but I like the pick. I'm going to give it a B. Now, Jahan Dotson at 20 or at 16 overall, I thought was a little high because I was much higher on Treylon Burks, who went 2 picks after to the Titans. I was way higher on other receivers than Jahan Dotson, even though Jahan Dotson has the best hands in the draft. He has the best hands, hands down. You get it, but I just felt like it was just a high draft pick, just a very high pick for Jahan Dotson, who I thought he could last to the 20s. And also the Commanders traded down from 11, and they kind of didn't get a lot of value back from me, so that impacts the pick. But I still like Jahan Dotson. I knew he was going to go in the first round, just a little bit high for me, so that's why the Commanders are 28th. But I am going to give it a B, or a B plus, B or a B plus. Similar to Jahan Dotson, I just felt like it was a little too early for Chris Olave. Other than Jahan Dotson, I knew Chris Olave was gonna be a top 20 pick when I thought that Jahan Dotson was gonna be probably a high 20 pick. Just because he blew up the combine, he had a 4.26 unofficial. He's really similar to Garrett Wilson in the fact that they're both extremely good route runners. But the downfall of Chris Olave, other than Garrett Wilson, is that he doesn't have that 50-50 ability. But his player comp is probably Terry McLaurin. I think he's underrated, but 11th overall, you're going to need to have a lot of production out of him to make up for the 11th overall pick. But I still think he's going to be good, so I'm going to give it a B+. Now, it is extremely rare for the number 1 overall pick to be as low as I'm going to grade him. I'm giving Travon Walker a B just because I am not the biggest fan of Travon Walker at number 1. Now, I think he was a top 10 player. He's probably the best run defender on the edge. He is the best run defender on the edge. He has freak athleticism, and he had somewhat production, and he has potential on the edge. But at the same time, he had 8% pass rushing rate. And if you look at the guys that had similar pass rushing pressure rates. If you look at guys that have similar pressure rates to him out of college, they don't translate well to the NFL. Freak athletes going extremely high in the draft that don't produce extremely good in college, like Travon Walker, just don't translate as well as you think to guys like Aiden Hutchinson, who do have production, and he had a breakout season. But I'm just not the biggest fan of Travon Walker, and I thought he was going to be a top 10 pick, and I think he probably deserved to be a top 10 pick. But at number 1 overall, another top-rated player, kind of low, or actually really low on my board. At 25, I have the Texans for Derek Stingley Jr. Now, I liked Derek Stingley so much in his freshman year at LSU. Watching the LSU defense was a lot of fun, but not really anybody other than Patrick Queen has succeeded out of that defense. Kayvon Chaisson, bust. Anyways, enough of the LSU guy. Let's focus on Derek Stingley. Now, he had a awesome freshman year, but his sophomore year was the 2020 COVID year. So I don't know how you can evaluate that. Last year, he missed all but 3 games with a foot injury. So some not red flags, but some question marks about his ability. He's been injured twice now in his college career. He got injured in 2020. I think it was a back issue. But the Texans ended up drafting him at 3rd overall. Now, he was my 2nd rated cornerback compared to Sauce Gardner, so I am good. I have to deduct him for that. It's a risky pick. It is a boomer bust pick. If Derek Stingley doesn't work out in the NFL, then this is going to be looked at as one of the biggest misses if Sauce Gardner really works out. So I'm going to have to give this probably a B right now, but it could be a B plus if he manages to stay healthy his rookie year. Now, maybe not his whole rookie year, but if he stays healthy. Now, Drake London is I like Drake London a lot. I like Drake London. But the problem is he's in the Pac-12, and the Pac-12 doesn't have the greatest competition. It's good competition, but it's not the NFL level compared to like the SEC teams. So is his best ability, which is his 50-50 ball ability, his 50-50 catch radius, all that good stuff, is that going to translate super well to the NFL? And is he going to get enough opportunities to create 50-50 opportunities? Not the greatest route runner compared to guys like Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, but he definitely can. He has around a 4.5, 4.6 speed. But the thing is, The Falcons already have a guy kind of like this. They already have a Chris London, or a Drake London, excuse me, in Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is like similar build, except a lot heavier, plays tight end, but it's a hybrid slot, big slot, outside guy, and they already kind of have it in Kyle Pitts. I actually, if they got Garrett Wilson, I think this would be so much higher on the board, but they ended up taking Drake London, and probably gonna give this a B plus. I think he's a good player, but I don't know about the Falcons. I like the player, don't like the team. The Packers are ending their day pretty early on. I think they're the first team that has gotten this low collectively, and this is I love Deontay White. I thought he was arguably just as good as Jordan Davis, and is arguably just as good as an athlete. But the Packers are just anemic to receivers. They're just. I thought that this was probably one of their best spots to take somebody like Christian Watson, George Pickens, to help out Aaron Rodgers. And the next pick you have is, I think, in the 50s. The next pick is in the 50s. How are you going to get a receiver there? They could draft a guy, but I don't think the top receivers currently available, like George Pickens and Christian Watson, they're not going to be available. I would be so shocked if they were available at 50. But the fact is, they did need help in the interior defensive line, so that's why this isn't too far down the list. But they came out of this draft still with their biggest needs. Cornerback, still a big need. They have like Kevin King as their second or third cornerback. Linebacker. Well, they got Quay Walker. So linebacker is no longer a need. But receiver, maybe even offensive line. And Jordan Love, like their draft picks of lately have been kind of questionable. So I'm gonna have to give them 23. But I like Deontay White. I'm gonna give him a B plus. But I'm gonna have to deduct the Packers a little bit. The next team out is the Houston Texans. Now, I like that they got really good value. They got really good value for Deshaun Watson. They ended up getting 3 first-round picks. One of them ended up being this one. This was from Cleveland, the 13th, and they moved down 2 picks. That was for Philly. Now, Kenyon Green, again, another versatile offensive lineman. You always need versatile linemen in the NFL, but I mean, even for them, ESPN has them as their 26th rated player. I had him similar area, and I thought that Zion Johnson was better than Kenyon Green. I thought he was more versatile, and he was better at most of the positions. He was one of my Senior Bowl standouts, but I think that they could have definitely gone with Zion Johnson instead of Kenyon Green. So I think that the pick was questionable at the time when I was streaming. I thought that Zion Johnson was the pick. If you're going to pick one of them, I thought it was going to be Zion Johnson. So I'm going to have to deduct them a little bit from that. So we're going to go with probably a B or B plus. Daxton Hill is going to be my 21st rated player. And I like Dax Hill a lot. I thought that he was definitely going to sneak into the first round. And that's why he's not so far down my list. At this point, no player is bad. They're all first round picks, other than maybe 2 of them, Tyler Smith and probably like Quay Walker and Cole Strange. Those guys weren't first round picks. They shouldn't have been first round picks. Anyways, all these guys from 20 on, they're good players. They're a good fit they're hopefully a good fit for their team. But that was just a little PSA. Dax Hill going to the Bengals. I don't know if safety was their biggest need. I thought Andre Booth could have been the pick. They do need like a third cornerback. I don't like them throwing at Eli Apple in the Super Bowl. You cannot throw out Eli Apple in the Super Bowl. They already have Jesse Bates, they already have Jesse Bates and Von Bell. So I don't know if Dax Hill is gonna end up playing the nickel, even though he does profile best as a single high safety. I just felt like cornerback, or maybe even another offensive lineman, or a trade down was a maybe bit of a nitpicky move, but it was probably a little better move than getting a third safety who, if you don't think you're going to re-sign Jesse Bates, which I think that they should re-sign Jesse Bates, that's this kind of move, that thing. So I'm going to have to give it a B plus because I do like Dax Hill, but the move is a little bit questionable in my mind. At 20, the Pittsburgh Steelers selected Kenny Pickett. In my mind, Malik Willis was the best quarterback in this draft class. There were reports that the Steelers really liked Malik Willis, but the Pitt player is going to stay in Pittsburgh. Now, this is kind of far. This is farther down my list, just for the fact that Kenny Pickett has. This is his hand size, by the way. He has the same exact hand size as me. So he is going to have fumble issues in the NFL. I don't think throwing will be an issue, but I think fumbling will be an issue. Played at Pitt. He's going to be in the same facilities, same location, stays in Pittsburgh. The move makes sense in the eyes of a fan of like a story kind of guy. Like you want the hometown kid, like the Joe Burrow-ish guy with like the Bengals, Ohio, blah, blah, blah. But who I think his player comp is Kirk Cousins and Joe Burrow, those two. Anyways, I'm a little bit questionable of this pick because I like Malik Willis better, and I didn't think quarterback was the biggest need for them because they did get Mitch Trubisky. So I am gonna rate this probably a B plus, and probably 20. And I'm gonna have it 20th on my thing, on my team rank. The next is at 19. We're gonna go with the Buffalo Bills. I like Kaiir Elam. I thought that he was just one step above Andre Booth Jr. And I'm gonna keep it simple. They needed cornerback. They needed quarterback depth after Tre'Davious White went down. They were giving up so many touchdowns, and you saw it in the divisional you saw it in the divisional round. They were not able to stop Patrick Mahomes at the last second. They need a secondary. They needed somebody to cover. So I'm gonna give this a B plus or an A minus. I like the pick. I think that this was the right pick, but I think the receiver is still in need, and I think receiver should be addressed in the second round. At 18, we're gonna go with the New Orleans Saints with Trevor Penning. I thought Trevor Penning was gonna go to the Chargers for a long time, and it ended up being Zion Johnson. So with the 2 picks after that, the New Orleans Saints went the Trevor Penning. This was integral. They needed to replace Teron Armstead, so he's gonna slide immediately there. He is still definitely raw, so this is a risk, but they need to keep on building that offensive line for the next quarterback that they have coming in here. And I think that they could trade back up for Malik Willis, possibly in the top of the second round. So I like this pick. I think that Trevor Penning was one of my Senior Bowl standouts. I did a deep dive in him, not on video. So he is really raw, but I think he does translate well. This is my player comp is not another tackle. He is the Ryan Jensen of tackles. Just a big, aggressive guy that will get in your face and will protect the quarterback. So I like this pick a lot. The Tennessee Titans ended up trading A.J. Brown to the Philadelphia Eagles for essentially Treylon Burks. Now, the contracts just didn't work out with A.J. Brown. They were going to pay him $16 million a year compared to A.J. Brown. What he wanted was $20 million. So he gets traded to the Eagles. A.J. Brown gets a massive extension. And the Titans basically get A.J. Brown again. Treylon Burks. My player comp was Deebo Samuel or A.J. Brown. He plays almost exactly like them. But at the same time, you need Treylon Burks to become A.J. Brown, basically to replace what he had. It's like the classic meme, like, oh, we have blah, blah, blah at home. This is A.J. Brown at home. So I'm going to give this a B-plus pick. It has to be deducted because they did trade away their second best player on their team other than Derrick Henry. So I do have to deduct it a little bit. This will be, and speaking about the Eagles became so much better after this draft, getting Treylon Burks. So that's going to factor into my, after the whole draft is done, and when I do the final team rankings and their final team grades, the Eagles are going to be a lot higher, and the Tennessee Titans are going to be a lot lower because of A.J. Brown. But I still like Treylon Burks. I thought he was a very underrated receiver coming out of Arkansas. And going to the Tennessee Titans is probably the best move for him. They can use him exactly like A.J. Brown. Now, you guys know that I'm not the highest on Kyle Hamilton. So I am going to have him at 16, but I'm still going to give them an A minus purely for the fact that Kyle Hamilton is going to the perfect scenario. And I knew immediately once the Ravens got on the clock, it was going to be a Kyle Hamilton kind of guy. Their secondary is now complete now because they got Marcus Williams, they have Lattimore, they have Marcus Peters, and now they have Kyle Hamilton. Kyle Hamilton goes to the perfect scenario, but I'm just not the highest on Kyle Hamilton. It's really high to take safety at 14, and I think he profiles the best as a box safety. So he's probably going to be productive in year. He's probably going to be super productive, and that really does help their defense. But I'm not the highest on him, so I am going to bump him down to an A minus. But I do have him at a rank 16. Now, I have Jordan Davis at 15 in my rankings. I have this as an A minus. I really like Jordan Davis coming out of Georgia. He was my top ranked interior defensive tackle. He was also my top ranked run defender coming from the inside. He is humongous. He's 6'6", 341, and he's an athlete. He ran a 4.78 at the combine. And he had like a 30-something inch vertical. He had over 10 broad. He's a freak athlete. He's a freak run defender, but at the same time, he's a 2-down player. He's not going to play on 3rd down scenarios. He's 1st and 2nd down all the way. But if you can get that kind of production out of Jordan Davis, this pick becomes so much better. But the reason why he is lower is because he's only a 2-down player. But I still think he's going to be one of the best 2-down players in the NFL, almost like a Vita Vea. This is like a Vita Vea pick, essentially. So it's going to be an A minus in my books. The Chiefs did really good this draft, but this did come with the deduction of Tyreek Hill. Now, I also thought they were in the exact same boat as the Green Bay Packers, where they should have addressed receiver either sometime in the 1st round or they got to trade up in the 2nd round. Now, they did have to give away one of their 3rd round picks, which could have been ammunition to go up in the 2nd round pick, to go up to 21, which ended up being Trent McDuffie, who is later on this list. But I'm going to go with but George Karlaftis at 30, I thought was an excellent steal. I thought it was one of the steals of the draft, purely because Jermaine Johnson fell. If Jermaine Johnson didn't fall, George Karlaftis was going to go way higher than this. And I liked him at Purdue. I thought he was an underrated player. It just, the only thing is that he doesn't have that superstar ability that the other edge rushers have or have the potential of having. So George Karlaftis is probably a B plus, A minus in my book, and I have him at 14. Devin Lloyd to the Jaguars at 27. They ended up also trading back into the 1st round after the Jets did, and this would have been higher if Devin Lloyd was a projected top 15 pick. But I knew that he was going to go around this area. But Devin Lloyd is almost a complete linebacker. He's a Fred Warner type of guy, Darius Leonard type of linebacker. And also the Jaguars ended up trading Miles Jack for a 5th round pick to the Steelers, which is a bad move. But they got a really good replacement in Devin Lloyd. And I'm going to give it an A minus. Just because I knew he was going to go around here. This isn't like an all-worldly steal. This move made sense. It fit a need, and it's a good player, so that's going to be an A minus. I just wish they had Miles Jack. The Chargers went with Zion Johnson, and I know he wasn't projected to go maybe as high as 17, but regardless, this fits probably the biggest need, interior offensive tackle, offensive line. This helps Austin Eckler. This helps Justin Herbert. This helps that entire offense, which is going to be probably the best or one of the best offenses in the entire league. Makes sense. The move makes sense. The pick is good. I thought that Zion Johnson was better than Kenyon Green, so I like this move a lot. The Chargers just consistently get players that drop that are awesome value picks. Rashawn Slater last year, he was my number 1 guy last year. Rashawn Slater was my number 1 guy. He ended up being an All-Pro. So Chargers are looking maybe probably like contenders this year in such a tough AFC West. Baltimore finished their day with arguably the best center prospect that I've seen in such a long time. I thought that Creed Humphreys last year was going to go around this range where Tyler Linderbaum went, but Tyler Linderbaum was a better prospect than Creed Humphrey, and Creed Humphrey was a top 5 rookie last year. And this fits a really big need for the Ravens. Their offensive line was not that good ever since Marshall Yanda, excuse me. Ever since Marshall Yanda left the Ravens, Lamar Jackson has not been the same on the ground. He hasn't been as productive since Marshall Yanda left. I think that the Ravens should continue to build that offensive line, and Tyler Linderbaum's a big step. This guy could be a All-Pro, Pro Bowl center for the next 10 years. I really like this move. I'm going to give it A minus to an A. I'm giving it an A minus just because center isn't the biggest position of need around the NFL. It's not the most valuable pick, but they got a good value for the best. This is like the Kyle Pitts pick of last year with tight ends, but they got him at 25. I've been seeing a lot of people put Charles Cross around the 15 range in their rankings for the picks in the first round, but I really like Charles Cross. I'm going to have him at 10th overall, and I'm going to give this an A minus to an A because I really like Charles Cross. He was my best pass rushing, just pure pass protector. And going to a Seahawks team that has a terrible offensive line, this should have been the pick, and I'm really glad it was because the Seahawks are probably going to get a quarterback next year. And if you're already building your offensive line before you get your quarterback in there, that's a great move. That's why I'm going to have it in the top 10, and I'm going to give it probably an A minus, A grade, just because this pick. It's a little deducted just because this pick came off the back of you losing your franchise quarterback. Garrett Wilson is going to be my 9th rated pick, and I liked Garrett Wilson a lot coming out. I thought he was the best route runner, and I thought he was one of the best 50-50 ball players, and I said this in my video about the Jets picks. This guy's a perfect scheme fit for what Mike LaFleur is looking for on the Jets offense. And I'm going to give this an A. It's not only a perfect fit, but it fits their biggest need, and it also helps Zach Wilson a ton. It's also going to help Elijah Moore and Corey Davis because you have to have a guy always monitoring Garrett Wilson. He's the closest thing to Odell, Robert Woods, these 5'11", 6-foot route-running monsters. And I love this pick a lot for the Jets. Trent McDuffie was, if not, or was one of the best value picks in this entire draft. I thought that Trent McDuffie was a top 15 pick. I thought that he could have went to Philadelphia. I thought they could have went to the Vikings even at 12 if they didn't trade back. So if the Chiefs are meeting a humongous need in cornerback after losing Travarius Ward, and they're replacing it with Trent McDuffie, who is one of the closest things to Jair Alexander that I've seen. The more that I watch Trent McDuffie, the more that I see Jair Alexander, Greg Newsome, guys that are like 5'11", even Charles Harris Jr. back in his prime. I really like this pick for the Chiefs, and they're meeting a huge need. This is an A in my opinion. This is an A. Jameson Williams was an awesome pick at 12, and he went to the Detroit Lions, who were supposed to pick at 32, but they ended up trading all the way up to 12 with the Vikings, and they didn't even have to give up that much. The trade package was a first to 32nd overall pick for the 12th overall pick, and the Lions and the Vikings swapped their second round picks. So essentially, and also the Lions gave a third round pick. So they went up 20 picks to only move down 10 and give a third round pick for Jameson Williams. Vikings got absolutely fleeced. The Lions made such a smart move. Jameson Williams will miss a little bit at the start of the season because he did tear his ACL in the national championship. But what a great value pick. And if you want to have your next quarterback, if you want to have Jared Goff, this was an awesome pick. This is an A or an A+. That's what I'm going to say about that. At 6 overall, I'm going to have the Carolina Panthers at Ikem Ekwonu. Ikem Ekwonu was my highest rated offensive tackle on the board. And I said he was a perfect prospect for the Jets. Did a deep dive into him. He is the best run blocker one of the best run blockers that I've seen. He's going to be a mauler on the outside. Also helps a terrible offensive line, the Carolina offensive line. He also has guard flexibility, can play both tackle spots, and Christian McCaffrey is essentially going to go wild. That's why he's going to be an A pick for me. Sauce Gardner is going to go at 5, and this is an A+ pick. The Jets go Sauce Gardner at 4. Kayvon Thibodeaux was in the mix, but Sauce Gardner is a lockdown cornerback. He had 0 touchdowns allowed in college. Now, he did play in Cincinnati, but in over, I think it was 1,500 snaps, he allowed no touchdowns, and he played some pretty good opponents. I mean, Iowa and Iowa State were both highly rated schools, but the Jets haven't had a lockdown cornerback since Darrelle Revis, and Sauce Gardner is the closest thing to Antonio Cromartie that I've ever seen. Antonio Cromartie is my player comp, and Antonio Cromartie was on the Jets. They have the same size, same height, same size, same weight, height, skill, position, speed, all that stuff. He's the closest thing to Antonio Cromartie that I've seen, and the Jets have been looking for a shutdown cornerback for such a long time since Darrelle Revis. And that's why I'm going to have him at 5, and he is an A+ move. He was a lot of people's number 3. He was my number 3 rated player, and he was a lot of media guys' top 3 players, including me. The Giants came out like bandits in this draft. They got 2 top 5 players at 5 and 7. They didn't have to do anything to get Evan Neal. Evan Neal was the first overall pick for me for such a long time, and he ends up falling to 7. Same thing with Kayvon Thibodeaux. Kayvon Thibodeaux, who comes up later in this video, was the number 1 overall pick in the preseason, and he falls all the way to 5. But focusing on Evan Neal, he is a monster. He's 6'8", 337. He's also athletic. He's extremely athletic, and he played at a school that produces so many good offensive linemen. He has position flexibility because he can play right tackle. He can play left tackle. Can't really slide into guard, but he's going to be elite in those 2 positions. Love this pick for the Giants. They met their biggest need, which is offensive line. You're going to help out Daniel Jones, and you're also going to help out Saquon Barkley, which is massive. That's why it's an A+ pick. I have Aiden Hutchinson at 3, purely based on the fact that they got him at 2. If they got him at 1, he would be a little bit lower, just because I like value picks over the obvious picks. So similar, like I had Trevor Lawrence a little lower last year, but the fact was the Jets drafted Trevon Walker, risky pick, and I think that Aiden Hutchinson was the much safer pick. He had great pressure rates in college. He was a one-year wonder because he didn't really play his freshman, sophomore, and junior year because he missed all of his junior year due to an injury. But the pure fact was he was the best edge rusher out of college last year. And this is the thing with bad quarterback classes, defensive players will go high. And he goes to a Lions team is similar to Kenny Pickett. He stays in state. He went to Michigan. Now he's going to Detroit. I love the move for the Lions. Lions came out of here as a top 5 team, top 3 team that got way better through this draft. Giving it an A+ pick. He was my number 1. He was my number 1 player on my top 50. I think that this move is going to shock a lot of people that I have Jermaine Johnson so high on my board, but Jermaine Johnson was my 6th overall player on my top 50. He was Daniel Jeremiah's 9th player, and there's no way that I thought there was no way that I thought Jermaine Johnson was going to be at 26. Now, this is the best value pick in my opinion. I'm a little biased. I'm just a little biased because I'm a Jets fan, but I think any fan would have liked Jermaine Johnson at 26. I mean, this guy, even though he was a 5th-year senior, and he is 23, he has no character concerns. He had 12 sacks last year. He was one of the leading edge rushers and tackles. He was the ACC Player of the Year, and I love. I keep on saying this. Senior Bowl players. The Senior Bowl matters. It is extremely important for scouting players, and the Jets saw him at the Senior Bowl. Even though they didn't coach him because that was the Lions. The Lions were the ones that coached Jermaine Johnson on the national team. He was the best player there. He was the best player of the Senior Bowl, and the best player of the Senior Bowl usually does well in the NFL, and he was dominating prospects like Zion Johnson. So this is my number 2 overall. This is my number 2 ranking. This is an A+ pick. I love that the Jets got Jermaine Johnson at 26. And finally, with my first rated player, is going to be Kayvon Thibodeaux. Now, I thought Kayvon Thibodeaux could have went at 2, he could have went at 4, but he ends up going to 5. The New York Giants killed this draft. They got 2 top 5 players, and Kayvon Thibodeaux was supposed to be the first overall pick in the preseason. Now, does have a little bit of concerns with injuries. Was injured multiple times in his college career. He did go to Oregon specifically for opportunities to get money from like Nike endorsements. He went to Oregon for endorsements. Number 1 player out of high school. So I truly don't think those are concerns. I truly don't think he's a diva. He's a smart player who wants to get his bag similar to everybody. I don't think the character concerns are an issue. On the field, he's the most dominant player in this draft. Probably the most dominant player in this draft. Just not only physically, but off the edge. He has that bend. He has the power. This is the number 1 ranking in my board. And you got him at 5th overall. That really pushes him up to number 1 overall. That he was drafted at 5. This is an A+ move. So, thank you guys for watching. Let me know your thoughts about the first round. Let me know your thoughts about how your team has done so far. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.